Welcome to Quick 3D Tutorials. Today's video is introduction for Zbrush. In this video we're going to cover the basic tool inside the Zbrush to get started with it. And Zbrush is actually a software you can modeling 3D object, and you can also using the sculpting to sculpting high detail information. At the same time you can also use polypainting to painting your texture. And the other part of the ZBrush is the canvas, which you can create images from the different 3D objects. So the first time you're running the ZBrush is starting by something called lightbox. You can show and hide this from here. And the lightbox is all the saved file and folder and section of the brush, texture, and so on. You can find over here. So for now, before we going to the ZBrush, we have two versions of it. We have the canvas, which is going to be image file we're going to create, and which the other thing is the 3D. So when we're going to modeling in the 3D. But before anything, this size of the document is very important. Let's say you want to creating an image and you want, of course, give it a size. So make sure over here, check the Pro off and type the size do you want. So 512 by 512, I press on resize. So now I have 512 texture, and now I can actually creating some of 3D model onto this and save it. But let's see, I want to working by the ZBrush to modeling something, so I want have the full display instead of only this canvas size. So to get the full screen, you're going to the document, double view size, and new document, do not save it. And as you can see, I have getting a full screen version of it. So to scroll, you're going to use these navigation to zoom in and out. Actually size, half size. So we go back to the actually size. All these is only designed to navigate in the canvas, which is the 2D vision, and the other is for the 3D object. We're talking about this later. So simply we're going to creating a simple canvas. You need to select any object do you want over here and just drag a couple of them. And when you are happy, you can basically go to the document. Of course you can save it, but if you want to export it as image, you're going to export it as image file. So if you want to clean the canvas, anytime press Ctrl N and that will clean the canvas for you. So now we want to talking about how to create a 3D object inside ZBrush. So the first thing we have over here, you can select one of the basic shape of the ZBrush. Let's see, we take this gear. You need to actually drag it over here, holding shift to snapping it to the position, and you can just press on the edit. Anytime you press on the edit, now you are into the 3D view. So what is the navigation inside the viewport? So the first thing we have the F, which is the framing. If you press F, it will frame it up. We have move tool. We don't moving the object, but we moving the viewport navigation. And shortcut for this is holding Alt and right mouse. To zoom in, you need to use this. And shortcut for this is holding Ctrl and right mouse left to right. And we have the rotation. Shortcut for this, any black spot, it will do the rotation. But if you working, let's see, you working over here and you have not a black spot outside of this box, if you do this, it look like you have the black spot and you can rotate this model. But if you have zooming your canvas, you can also use the black spot to do this. I press on the F and we are in the frame mode. So actually size of canvas. The other thing we have, actually we can snap the object to the front, back, bottom of the left or right. To do this, at the same time we dragging it, we need to holding shift is going to snapping it. Let's see, it is front, and if I move it by this side, holding shift is going to move snapping it to the other side. So that is just, let's see, front, back, top, bottom, and so on. So now we know how to create the model, just basic model over here, and how to navigate over there. We have another option. Anytime you selecting one of these, cylinder, sphere, cube, or what of these things, you have an option to edit on it. You can editing on it by sliding the different value you have over here, and so on. And when you are happy by the result, you need to click on the Make Polymesh 3D, otherwise you cannot working with it. You don't get all the full option of your ZBrush. So make sure anytime you want to use one of these, make the Polymesh 3D. So let's see you want to creating another one. So we have actually in the ZBrush we have something called a switch. So if I click on this and click on the switch, is now I can see the edit mode off. That means that is not a 3D. So Control N will clean my canvas. Now I can simply select another object. Let's see, I don't know, this one, and you can just drag holding Shift, go to the edit mode, and F to frame it up. Of course, the same thing over here. You can playing by this to getting what you're looking for and make Polymesh 3D when you are finished by editing. So that is how we can switch by the different object or files. So the other thing we have, we can taking a screenshot of this like the canvas. So we need to moving it anywhere we want. Shift S will take the canvas screenshot. As you can see, we have only this one in the 3D. Of course, I can just move it over here. Shift S once again. So I have now two screenshots of this model. But we have only this one is editable in the 3D. So to clean this, Control N will clean this canvas for us. So let's see now you want to import a OBJ file. To do this again, we need to click on this and switch, Control N to clean the canvas, go to the import, find the folder you have, let's see this one, and you need to dragging it. Holding Shift at the same time, go to the edit mode, and now you have importing this OBJ file. So let's say you have more in one OBJ file. To importing this, you need to, again, I'm going to the switch, Control N to clean my canvas. Instead, I need to select something called Polymesh 3D. I just select this and just dragging it, click on the edit, go over Z plugin. We're going to something called the Subtool Master, Multi-Append, and from here I can holding my control and selecting these OBJ file I want and symbol, click OK. So as you can see, now I have import this object was 3, so now I have importing these two in the same time. So now we want to give you a just short review about this viewport. So we have something called the polyframe. If we click on it, it gives you a wireframe mode of this object. We have the transparency. If I click on the transparency, every object in the scene going to be transparency. That one will not do because we have selecting the tree, so you can see I can see through it. If I just turn the glossy off, I can see through, but the glossy has been turned off. So now I just turned the transparency off. We have solo, which is going to show only this object you have selected, and we have the expose, which is going to basically moving it in the expose, and you can sculpting it and say, okay, now I am finished. Once again click, it will go to the back position. So now we want to talking about the move tool. So the same tree has been selected, we can actually click on the move tool. This one is draw mode is basically for the brushes, and move tool is to moving the object. So move, scale, rotate is same for the Gizmo, and Gizmo is a new option of the ZBrush to moving the object and scale and rotate. And we have also the old method, which is another one, but in this case you need to select what do you want. If it is move or scale or rotate is a little bit different. But for now we're just starting by the Gizmo. So here we have the Gizmo. Of course we can move these in the different axes and is going to show it. Now this one is the Z, if you see over here, and we can also move it by these chord, and we can rotate it, of course, go back to other rotation and rotate this as well. So we have something called a sticky. If I click on the sticky and move it down and move it down, as you can see the pivot point is always the same. So I just undo this couple of times and turn this off. So we have other thing, which is the transformation or rotation, not the transformation. So if let's say you have moving it over here, you don't want it, go back to the default, click on the home icon. But if you have moving it and you have rotate this, you want to reset only the rotation of it, click on this, it will reset rotation, and click to the home to back to the position. So rotation and transformation. The other thing we have is the lock. If I just lock this on, it will change the pivot point where I want it to be, and lock against basically is going to lock it. So from the yellow line I can scale it up and down, and scale only one axis is also possible by these red area. And the last things is actually click on this, and basically is going to change the pivot point to the central of the object. And we have also this option. If I turn it on, every subtool, which is every object in the scene, will be moved by this now. So we just go to the back to the default one. So that was just a quick review about the Gizmo transformation. So now we want to talking about the old method. So if I just turn the Gizmo off, so over here you have something white. If I click on it, it's going to the central pivot of this object, and of course I can just dragging it over the object anywhere I want it. Actually, to make it a straight line, you need to, at the same time you do this, holding the shift, and it will do this. And any of the orange spot of the circle, you can change your pivots. This one is for whole of this pivot, but for now we just go to this one. So now we are on the move tool. Basically we can now move it from the white circle. If you want only move in one axis, holding shift, and it will only move in the Z axis in this case. And if you want it to move it other one, you need to change it to the X axis. As you can see, it has been changed, and if I holding the shift and do the same time, is going to move it in the other axis. So back to the Z axis, we have over here something called the flatness. So it's going to trim it kind of, as you see there. And we have the scaling, but it's not scaling it even. So it was just about this. And anytime you can see the Y and the Z, X, and all these stuff. So let's see, you want now to scale, click on the scale. We have two pivots. We have one pivot over here and one pivot over here. If I want to scaling it from the bottom, you need to go to the center of this circle and do this. So you can see I'm going to scaling it by this pivot. If you want it to be over there, the opposite is correct. So it's going to change the pivot to the top one. And the central will not scaling it even. So, and same thing, you can change it, of course, and click to freeze it to the central of the object, the pivot point. So now we have the rotation. The central will rotate it by himself, Let me put it to the central. So this one is will rotate it by himself, as you see. And now again the same thing, we have to pivot now. If I want to rotate from here, I need to move it from the top, and if I want it to be over here for the top, I need to move it from the bottom. Same thing by the scale. So if you want pivot point to be here to rotate, take the top one, and if it is the other, take the down one. And if you want to change the axis, you can simply click on the other, and now you can rotate the tree completely in the other axis. So that was just the basics about the moving tool. We just go back to the draw mode. The thing I forgot to say is perspective. So if we turn the perspective on, you can see it in the perspective, and this is going to give you a flat. The flat of this is good when you're modeling, let's say, a car from the left or side or top view, and the perspective is good for the character, and the final render of your object is basically in the perspective always. So now we're going to the subtool. What is subtool? Subtool is basically all the object you have on the scene, and you can click on the eye one to show and hide them. But if you are on the tree in this case and click on the hide, it will not hide it because you have selecting it. As soon you move to the other one, you can see you have hiding this. So to move it up or down or selecting it, let's see, I want to select this one, I can click on this or select the top one. Short key for this is keyboard arrow up and down. You can also selecting it in the viewport by holding Alt and click on it. So that is another way. And the other thing, if you want to move this to be top or down or something of this, you can use these. To rename, click simple to the rename, and you can duplicate and you can delete, and you can also append a new object. Let's see the spear. I just select it by the Alt key, and I'm going to delete this. So the other thing we have is the merge and split. If I want to merge this, I need to select my first one, and we have an option called merge the downward. So you're going to the merge and merge down, press OK, and now you have merging it all in the one. But let's say you want to split this, simply go to the split, and we have options split to similar part. So now we are back to the same thing. So just a quick reviewing about the subtool. So now we want actually talking about the geometry self. Let's take this one. So I'm going to select this. So to adding subdivision to your model, we have one option is the geometry, and we have another one is Dynamesh. Let me show you what is the difference. So if I turn my wireframe, you can see we have very low vision of this model, and if I use sculpting, it looks like nothing happening, and that is because we don't have enough polygons. So I just turn it off, and I can subdivide this. But before I do this, what is I am working with? What is this? If I turn the smooth on and subdivide this couple of times, is going to add the subdivision with a smooth vision of it. But I just undo couple of times. But if I turn this off and do the subdivision, is going to subdivision this, but it not adding any smooth vision to the model. So if you're working by the building or cube, you don't want it to be smooth, turn this off. But if you're working with the face, head, character, so make sure you turn the smooth on. That is a difference between these. So And we have UV is going to smooth your UV, so make sure turn it on. But in this case, we have not creating UV for the model, but now we just focusing about the basics sculpting. So now you can just, the shortcut for this is Control D, or clicking on this. Now I have 6 lever because I have clicking some of time. You can slide up and down to the low, to medium, and so on. And the shortcut is, if you are on the high, you want to go to the low, Shift D couple of time, and if you want to go to the high, D couple of time is going to the highest one. And if you want to delete the low, you can do this, and if you want to delete the high, you need to go to level 1 and press delete the high. So I just subdivide this couple of time again. So why we need to do this now? If I just do my painting or sculpting, excuse me, so you can see we have more polygons to work with. I just undo this. So the other thing we have is Dynamesh. If I just turn this off to 1 and deleting my high levels and go to something called Dynamesh, and the resolution is how many polygons do you want to add, and click symbol Dynamesh. So if we look into the wireframe, we have Dynamesh on it, is very like not so high, not so low, is kind of medium, and it is not even, and it is not problem because when you're working by Dynamesh, you don't thinking about the polygon or topology, you're only focusing about your model. You want to modeling it the thing you want it to be. So what is the Dynamesh can do, the other cannot? Let's see, the geometry cannot do this. Well, if you selecting, let's see, the move tool and trying to move this and trying to move it, you can see in some part we have not enough polygon over here. So we need to have more polygon to work with it. And from here, when you have Dynamesh on, any black spot on the viewport, holding Control and just drag is going to create another Dynamesh. As you can see now, we have getting different polygons. So now I can move it whatsoever I want. And again, once again, I can add it and add it until I getting the thing I wanted. So I just undo this couple of times. There we go. Of course, there are another thing about this. We just give you a basics. So the other thing we have is Zremesher. Basically, when you are finished by modeling, you want to have a low vision of your model. So you're going to change how low it should be and just symbol click on Zremesher and it gives you a low. It's basically making retopology for you. So now we have creating this retopology, as you see. So let's say you are finished by modeling your character or model or whatever it is, and now you want to give a detail for it by the brushes. So when you are in the low vision of your model, like here, you need of course adding subdivision, otherwise we have not enough polygon to painting on it. So we're going to the geometry. Of course I'm going to change the brush to be standard just to see it, so you can see is not give us the result we want. I just undo this. But before I do this, in same time, basically I'm going to creating a UV map for it. So if I want to paint this texture is going to be ready. So how we can create this? But before it, let's see how we can check if we have UV or not. Basically we're going to UV map. If we cannot click on the morph UV, that means we don't have UV. To do this, before we creating a UV, make sure your geometry have not subdivision level. But let's say you have couple of, you can use the lower version and click on the freeze subdivision, but I don't recommend it. So I think always is good idea to get a start by the low one and just simply go to the Z plugin, to the UV master and click on it, and it will creating a UV for you. How it look like? Basically, if we're going to UV map, click on the morph UV, So you can see that is our UV, and once again click is going back to the default geometry. So that is the first thing you need to do. Now you are ready to subdivide this. Again, smooth UV, smooth this because I want it to be smooth, and subdivide this, let's see, 6 times. So now I am ready to sculpting on it. As you can see now, we have getting nicer, softer result of the sculpting. So now we're talking about the brushes. First of all, we have the standard brush. You can find it over here, starting by S. And basically this brush is very simple. You can see I can sculpt on it. Before we talking about this, we need to show you what is the difference over here. So we have mRGB, it means material and color information, and RGB is mean only the color information, and M is for material. So if you want to creating a material for this model, you need to turn this on. If it is only the color, turn this one on. If you want to have both, click on this one and filling it to be 100% intensity. So that is for the coloration and material. You can of course turn it off. And we have another things which is Z add and Z sub. So when we have Z add, we can control intensity by this. So as you see over here, I'm going to add, clicking on Z sub, I'm going to give the opposite. So I just undo a couple of times. The short key for this is, if I holding Alt and do this, I'm going to make it Z sub. And then if I just do this without holding Alt, I'm getting Z add. And if we have doing something, we want to smooth this out, you need to click on the shift, and same time you do this, you're going to get it smooth vision. And at the same time you have holding shift, you can control the smooth brush setting. So we have over here the size, which is going to be draw size. Over here you can also click on the S to scale it up and down, and of course it's just the brush size. And we have the central brush, which is over slider over here. You can actually click on the O and slide it, and now you can see we're getting like more harder brush. So I just undo this. So the other thing we have I just go to the default one a little bit like this. So the other thing we have over the brush is the mirror. So if we're going to, of course we can press on the X, but you can find it over here, active, symmetric, and from here, depend what where my symmetric is on, you can see I can paint in symmetric way. So to controlling it, let's see, I want to adding something for the top one, but not only 2, I want it to be more in 2. To do this, you need to choose which axis do you want. I think is Z. You can have more in one, and you can click on the R, the number of this brush setting you want. I want it to be 8. So if I going over here, you can see now, of course my model is not symmetrical, so it's not give me the perfect result, but my brush is symmetrical. So as you can see, by this way we can control the symmetric of the brush. So for now we just turn it off. So now we have the basic of this. We have also something new feature, which is going to be provision of the brush. You should have not high division on it. You should have low polygons, and from the low polygons you can basically creating it look like the Dynamesh, but only adding detail where you're working with. But for now we just focus about the brush setting. The other thing we have there is the stroke. We have this and this one, which going to just give you a stroke, and this one is we're going to give you softer version. We have the drag, so you can basically drag it. Let me put intensity a little bit higher, so you can see we can just drag a couple of this, and is instead of sculpting is going to give you this drag way. We have the spray. Over here we have placement, but before this let me show you. You can see it's very high now. I'm putting it downer. Is going to add it on my models. Placement, if it is 0, it's following your brush, and if it is higher number is going to not follow your brush. And we have something for a scale, is going to scale it for you. The color, we're going to cover it, we're talking about this later. And we have follow, how much do you want this spray following your brush. Let me put it to the 1. You can see the different, and putting it to the 0 is not following so much. But you can also playing by this to get it. And last thing is drag dot. So you're dragging, basically, let me give it more. Yes. So you can see now I can just drag and place it where I want it to be. So next things we have about this truck, actually, if you have the default one, you have over this truck something called lazy mouse. If lazy mouse is higher number and you drag on it, you can see it's not following very much. If your lazy mouse is lower in this truck, it will give you more softer, but it should not to be 0. 0.2 will give you, or 0.1, it will give you very soft version of this truck. So for now we just go by the default, which was I think 0.25. So now we have something called the alpha. Alpha is actually black-white images which can adding information to your model. So by default, if I just drag it, you can, okay, I put intensity a little bit less, so you can see we have getting this star. To controlling it to make sharper or softer, you can use the O, click on the O and make it very negative color, and you can see we're getting sharp version of this. And if I'm putting it to the plus, I will basically get faded out this brush. And you can of course turn it off or importing an image file. So for now we just undo this and putting it off. We have a for the texture, we're talking about this later. So basically that was just the basic things about the brush setting. Now we want to just give you a quick review which type of the brush we have. So the brush we're using offer is clay built up. Basically put this a little bit less, and you can just maybe a little bit less, so you can just come back and forth to getting which shape do you want, and use the smooth, holding shift you can smooth it. And of course the standard brush is also another option. Holding alt is give you the opposite. So we have also, I just undo a couple of times, we have the move tool and scaling it, so moving it to the shape we want it to be. Of course all with type, make sure looking onto your on your model in different way. And we have this one which is going to drag it, and you can see we can drag this to different shapes. And we have damn standard brush to creating some of line, so we can trim it out by this one and other things. There are many things, brushes, just the basic was these things. And anytime you're changing brush, every brush have own setting. So if you have this alpha, if I changing to standard brush is non-alpha on it, and intensity and Z add is also different. So now we want to also talking about the layer, which is basically the layer only work in one level. So if you wanted to working by the level 6, so only it work by level 6. You cannot go to the level 1 and recording this to the layer. So basically you need to go to over here, clicking on the layer. Basically layer is for sculpting and for the painting. Now I can just paint, let's see this one, and I can just slide it back and forth. You can see oppositive effect, or even deleting it. But anytime I want to record on this, I need to click on it. Over here is going to the record mode, and I can record again. But as soon I putting it, let's see, number 1 or less, or not less, number 2 or other, if I want to go to the click on the recording, you can see you cannot do this. So you need to be on the highest level, in this case number 6, to sculpting your detail. But otherwise is a good idea to use it. So you can just delete it by this way. So now we want to show you how to apply different material and how you can use the polypainting. So to applying a different material, of course, in the subtool, you need to select which one do you want to add or creating material for, or apply a material. So when I want to have this tree to have any material, I going over here. Let's see, we want to have the gold one. I am happy by this. I want to fill this to it. To do this, simply make sure you are in the standard brush. You turning M on, which is for material, and Z add off, putting it to 100%, and basically go to the color and fill object. So if you want also filling the color, at the same time you need to make M and RGB. So it's going to fill the color and it will also filling the material. But if I make my mouse over here, you can see we have gold material on it. So now I selecting my second one. Let's see, we want to have the other material. Make sure again standard brush, turn Z add off and M on, and go to the fill object. So now we have basically filling this by white and the other by the gold one. So that is just a simple way to apply the material to your geometry. So now we want to painting on it. The first things we need, of course, in the last one I have showing you how to creating a UV map for it by using the UV master tool. For now we want just to painting. The painting is same like the sculpting. If you have low one, it will give you basically a low resolution of the texture, and higher polygon it will give you higher texture information or resolution. So we have it on the high one, which is good. We can also use the layer if we want, but make sure it is same like the sculpting. You only can work by one level. So if you're working on level 6, you can now go back to level 1 and make edit and came back to level 6. So that is, you need to keep on the mind. So by now we think, okay, I'm working by layer. So from here you can choose which color do you want, and the painting brushes is basically a standard brush and paint brush. If I click on the P on my keyboard, you're getting this paint brush, but for now I just selecting the standard brush, which is this. So now I need to change my material to RGB, and that is only the color, so I can just dragging it. So I just undo. And for the opacity of the color, you can playing by intensity is going to give you the opacity of this. And the same thing for the alpha we have using in the other for the sculpting is completely the same. If we have it sharper on this, we will get sharper version of this start. Okay. So the only different we have over this is the texture. If I selecting it, let me turn this off, I can import any texture file or selecting one of these texture. and by this way I can painting by this texture. You can see it is not soft. To make it softer, put this one to be higher, and as you can see it look is very softer. Depend which one we're going to use is give us different result this stroke. So anytime you don't want to have this layer, click on the delete and you have your empty vision of it. So the other thing we have also is this color spray. When you're selecting color spray and you have the red one, but in this case I'm selecting the green one, you have an option over here is color. If it is 0, it only give you the same level of the green, but if I make it a little bit higher, it's going to shift on the other type of the green. As you can see, we have very dark green, very light green, and so on. So last things we want to talking about the poly painting is the texture. You can go over here and import your texture, but in this case I just taking this one, and when you have selecting it is something called spotlight. You can click on it and hide the lightbox, and from here you can scaling it, and over here you have opacity of the image. You can move it from dragging your image over here, and you have another things which is the brush size, brush radius. So when you are ready by painting, click on the Z, and you can see we done painting, but it gives me a review, and now I can basically painting by the brush I have selecting. So that is, but it's going to project the other, so I cannot coloring in this area. To coloring also in the outside of this image, you need to go to the brush, and so over the brush we have something called project. If I just turn this off and painting, you can see we're getting another color, and that is because we have selecting the green color. So if I want to go back to the projecting of the what it called the spotlight, back again to this, and from here I am back to the projecting or painting by this texture we have. So basically to getting a color information from this, let's say I want to pick this blue color. You need to click on the C and Control Shift will hide this. You can also pick up the green once again by clicking on the C. So if you want it from the texture, Control Shift Z, excuse me, click on the Z to show it, and C to selecting this color you want. And after it, Shift Z will disable this. So that was just the basics painting inside the ZBrush. So now we want to talking about the masking. We're going to the lightbox and selecting one of these. So it have the symmetric on, so click on, press on the X to turn it off. So I going to holding my control, and at the same time I holding it, I going to painting a black spot. So what I have done now, I have actually masking this area, and if I is clopping on it, you can see I don't affecting the other area. So by this way you can use the masking to not affecting other area. So what is the different way to do this? So I just undo a couple of times. So the first thing is to creating a mask holding Control and Paint. If you want to remove one of these masking, you need to holding Control Alt. It will delete it, and Control we adding once again. The other thing is we can invert this by holding Control and click over here. It's going to invert. Click again, we are back to this one, And to actually clean this mask, we need to just drag it over here, so we have cleaning this mask. So the other way is again holding Control, make the selection again. Let's see, I want to make this one to be softer. To do this, you holding Control and click couple of times. You can see we getting it softer. Let's see, you want to make it sharper. You holding Control, Alt, and double click on it a couple of times, and now you have making it sharper. The other way to selecting the mask is the move tool. If we're using the move tool and just holding Control and draw this move tool, we basically going to selecting it by the move tool. So that is just the basic how we can selecting the mask. So now we want to talking about the polygroups. But before we do this, I need to make this one to be a little bit. First of all, we don't need to have Dynamesh, and for now I just making a quick Zremesher. So now we have the low version of this. If I just check the polyframe, you can see my polygons. And to creating polygroups, you need of course first to select the polygons. So to do this is simple, holding Control Shift and just dragging it. So now you have selecting this polygroups or the polygons. So to invert this, Control Shift, one click on it, it will invert, and Control Shift over the black spot, once click, it will clean this. So to creating polygroups, Control Shift, select, go over the polygroups, and simple click on the group the masket. At the same time you're clicking, it will give you a different color, is completely the same, just the color information is a different. So now when you have done this, the other way to selecting it is using the mask. So I can use my mask tool. Let's see, I want masking only this area, so I can just holding Control and paint over there, and over this one I can just click on the group masket. So now you have getting 2 or 3 different polygroups. Let's say I want to work only in this area, Control Shift, one click on it is only showing me this, and I can just simply go and sculpting and adding some of detail on this model. Okay, so Control Shift, click on the back spot, so now we are back to the default one. So there are many other things we can using the polygroup, but how to create it is just a simple way. We can use the group masking to do this. So now we want actually to show you how to save your file, how to export your object, how to export the different texture like color and bump map, displacement map, and the normal map, just the basics. So basically to saving, you need always use this, not the document. So you're going to the save as, but you can also save it with the history you have, and you can just turn it off. Is going to make it smaller file, so I recommend to turn it off, but of course if you want it, you can do this. So you're simply going to save as where you want it, and to opening it, the same over here, you can just click on the open and you can open it. But before anything, I want to first of all check if I have UV, and I know I don't have UV, but the same thing over here, UV map, I cannot click this, that means I have not UV. I am in the geometry, lowest vision, I have not subdivision, so that is good. Go over this, go over UV master and create a UV very quickly. Just to see we have creating UV, go to the UV map and morph, and you can see we have right UV for it. So now we are ready to subdivide this. In this case we have a head, so we need to be smooth and smooth UV at the same time, and we're going to give it, yes, like 6 times. So here we are. I have symmetric on by press on the X, and now I'm going to just make very quick sculpting. So now we have just making very quick sculpting to it. So let's see that is a knot, and we want of course go over painting. Let's say in this case I have using the layer system. Okay, but before I can use this I need to go to the subtool and selecting, let's say, skin shader, and make sure I am to the standard brush. I am the mRGB and Z add off, opacity to be 100, go over the color and go to the fill object. So now we have adding the color information, and I'm going to creating a layer and now I am ready to painting. So now we have finishing the painting, very basic painting over here. So the thing is, I have using the layer, so make sure to turn any record layer to be off and then click on bake all. So now I need to select my object, which is in this case is this one. I turn the symmetric off by pressing on the X. So I going to the geometry, make sure you're going to the lowest version of the model, and from here I can just simply export this as OBJ file, cartoony head. Okay, so now we are ready to creating a different texture. So we're starting by the color. So to make the color, make sure you have it on the level 6. That is very important when you want to export the texture. Over this, we're going to the UV map, and in this case I just taking 512 to make it a little bit faster, and go to the texture, create new from Polypainting. So when you click on it and click OK, so now I have creating this texture. So to export this, you need to press on the clone texture, and over the texture over here you having it here. So if you want to using it for Maya 3ds Max, you need to fill it over in the V. So we need to do this and export this and just give which version do you want. But let's see, okay, Photoshop is okay. We're going to color for color. So the other thing is how we can get the normal map or displacement map. Basically the displacement map and the bump map is going to be the same. So to do this, we need now, instead to be in the highest detail levels, we need to go to the lowest version of the model. As soon we going to do this, or basically I will just show you something in the texture. When we have exporting this texture, by default Zbrush going to add it. So if you don't want to this one adding it, so you can just turn it off. So I just turn it off, but it's not matter. So now we want to export the displacement map and normal map. So the first things we need to do, put the subdivision to level 1, or this level you have exporting your OBJ file. Then you're going to the displacement map and simply create displacement map. And the size of this is 512 because we have already selecting it. So now we have getting the displacement map. We need to clone the displacement, but in here in this case it is not in the texture, it is inside the alpha, and we fill it over, go to the export, and we just calling it this place. So the last things we have is the normal map. We're going to the normal map. We need again to be on the lowest version, which we are already, and simply create normal map. The normal map is going to be a texture, so is going to be over here when it came. So now we have the normal map. We're going to clone the NM, which is the normal map, go to the texture, fill it over, and export. So we can just call it normal map. So now we have actually OBJ file and all the texture we have creating inside Zbrush. I hope it was helpful this video, and we have trying to give you all the basics tool inside Zbrush, and thanks for watching.